morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. Welcome back to another video. Was I in the was I in the last video?
I don't think so.
Anyways, I am back, and depending on how we did the thumbnail or not is gonna depend on whether we ruined the the reveal already, depending on the picture. But either way, welcome back, guys, and let's get right to the reveal. Okay, so if you guys have been following the last couple of videos, you know that Ben has been in the works of something big. Literally. And we finally got everything done. He finally got back from every place that he had to go to get all his parts ordered and all the paint and this, that, and the other.
Yo, facts.
And finally, it's time to show you guys what he's been so excited about. You can even see he can't stop smiling. Let's get right to it, Ben. Talk to us.
All right, so as you guys know, Jamal just went over. Today's a big day, literally. So we are going to be installing the big brake kit that I purchased, OEM from BMW, the 6-piston front, 4-piston rear big brake kit that I got. So as you guys already saw, I've already installed everything that needs to be installed on the passenger side. And right over here, excuse me, is what we have left. So as you guys can see, we have one rear caliper left and one front caliper left. And just to go ahead and tell you guys the color that I went with, because I didn't tell you in the last video, I decided to go with Brembo nickel plated. And I have to say it looks pretty good against the mineral white. So I'm happy with that choice. Samuels did an absolute great job of painting the brake calipers. Everything came out better than expected.
You're not even doing yourself a service properly, bro. Explain to them how hard it was to come across a color like that.
Yeah, I mean,
come on, man.
So, I mean, it was difficult, but not that difficult in the sense that Brembo does release this paint code, to body shops or, yourself if you want to use this paint code. But it is very difficult to apply, being that it is a 2-stage, if I said that correctly, process, being that they had to sand down all the red that was on the caliper because they were previously red. If you guys are new here to the channel, they had to sand that down, then they had to spray it over in black, and then they applied the nickel plating on top, which gives it sort of like a mirror, reflective, shadowy finish. It's very hard to describe, and it's kind of hard to tell in this lighting, but when you take it outside, it's very reflective, almost like a mirror. So that's what I really liked, about this color. We also are going to be installing what I have left of the Turner Motorsport stainless steel braided brake lines, just to get a better brake pedal feel. And as I'm installing, both the front and the rear, showing you guys how it works, I'll go into, more depth about the benefits of these and the benefits of the bigger brake, calipers and the rotors that come with it. So enough talking. It's already super late. We've been here a long time.
Yep.
We ran into so many issues, but we fixed them all. We're good to go. So let's hop into it. All right, guys. So first things first, you're going to need to start by disassembling your caliper and rotor setup that you have on the vehicle as of right now. This is the caliper and rotor setup that came with this car from the factory, being a 4-piston front caliper. And I forget the size of the rotor, but again, we're gonna need to start by removing this first. Being that I have a spacer, I'm just gonna go ahead and pry this bad boy off. Motorsport Hardware was not kidding when they said hub-centric, because this thing is really on there. All right, there we go. So that's off. Now, being that we're doing a full caliper replacement, it makes our lives a lot easier. So the next thing we're going to want to remove is going to be right up here at the top is going to be our brake line right here. So that's going to be a 17 millimeter here at the bottom and a 13 millimeter here at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that, and then once that's off, I'll tell you guys what to do next. All right, guys, so now that we removed the brake line here from up here. I lied to you guys, it's not a 13 at the top, it's an 11. Sorry, I'm tired. But now what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna remove this retaining clip / locking clip that holds your actual brake line itself into the body. So a pair of vice grips works really well, and some PB blaster, depending on how long it's been on there. So a little bit of PB blaster, some vice grips, and kind of just wiggle left to right. And she will eventually come up, hopefully. Or you can slip off. Well, you guys get the idea. I'm gonna keep playing with this, and once that's off, then we'll move to the next step. All right, guys, so next, after I finally got that off, now what you're gonna do is remove your sensor here. That's easy, you just pop that out of place. And then you're gonna remove both of the 18mm bolts on the bracket that hold the caliper to the hub itself. So, I'm just gonna take those out. A little too far. There we go. Thought I had a little more clearance. Guess not. There we go. Now once both the 18s are out, we already freed up the brake line. So now we're just gonna slowly wiggle the caliper off as the brake fluid starts to pour. Like that. And then there we go. Caliper's off. Set that to the side. Next will be the rotor. So for this rotor, you're gonna need a 5mm Allen. Break it loose. And for M cars, there's usually 2 bolts that hold the rotor in place. So remove both of those. And now your rotor is free. Now depending on how stuck on it is, will depend on whether you can wiggle it off or not. And mine's pretty stuck on there, I can't wiggle it off. So in order to avoid any damage to the rotor itself, try to use like a rubber or a plastic mallet. Hold the rotor in place and kind of just give it a tap. Like that. And the rotor comes off. All right, so now that everything's been taken off, this is where it kind of gets a little tricky. So being that we're putting on, I'll grab it actually. Being that we're actually putting on a caliper that's twice the size of the one that the car came with, I'll show you. When you try to put this caliper on with the normal dust shield, as you can see, I'm getting stopped there at the bottom, and I'm also being stopped there at the top, right? So there's 2 ways you can do this. The first way is to cut the actual dust shield itself, which is what I'm doing. It's what I've already done. Or you can buy the dust shield for an M2 competition. An M2 CS or an M2 competition. Or you can buy the carbon ceramic version of this, which is a lot more expensive. So I highly recommend purchasing the M2 competition or the M2 CS dust shield. If you want to avoid cutting, I didn't choose that option just because the cutting method works, and I've already done it. So you can cut this one of 2 ways. If you have some really big shears, unfortunately I don't. It's just snip, 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 and you're done. Or you can use a Dremel for a little bit more of a cleaner cut, and obviously follow this line here and this line up here. Essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to remove just a pretty decent sized chunk from the actual heat shield itself so that the new caliper can slide on here easily, you know, with no interruptions or anything touching it in that sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make these cuts, and then I'm going to throw the rotor and the caliper on, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we have everything that's brand new assembled. As you can see, we have the new bigger rotor assembled, along with the Brembo big 6-piston brake calipers assembled as well. I assembled the pads and the Jesus clips on the calipers off camera, just for time purposes, trying to save a little bit of time. But it's fairly simple. It's pretty much the same process as if you had the regular blue calipers on here, except for, if you come over here, Jamal, I'll show them. The Jesus clip on the 6-piston calipers is a little different. So what you want to do is you want to put this on the inner portion of the caliper first, and then take a little pocket screwdriver and just wiggle it in till you hear it clip in, and then you'll drop your pads in, and then you'll put your sliding pins in as well. So that's how that works. We got the Turner Motorsport steel braided brake line installed as well. Everything locked back into place and hooked back up and connected and tightened. Because, I mean, you're just doing everything in the reverse order that you did it for this install, minus a little bit of cutting here and there for the dust shield. And then once you finish cutting the dust shield, what you're gonna do is, once it's all assembled, spin the rotor, and make sure you don't hear anything grinding, touching, or anything like that. You want everything to be able to move and spin freely, so you don't run into any issues, you know, as you're driving and things like that. So now that the entire front is assembled, now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the back. The back is a little more tedious, but we'll get into that as I start to take it apart. All right, so we move on to the rear, guys. Now it's gonna be the same process pretty much that we did for the front, except for the brake line is just a little bit easier. You don't have to worry about there being a little pin clip that holds it into the body of the hub. It just goes straight up here. You take it out just like you did the one in the front, and then it just dangles down. And then the only difference between the rear bracket bolts that hold the caliper to the hub is that the fronts are 18s and the rears are going to be an E16. So as you can see, this is a E bolt, it's an E16. So that's really the only difference between the front bolts and the rear bolts. Once those are out, the caliper, just like the front, will slide off just like that. And for the sake of time, we'll put that right there. Now, the bolts that hold in the rotor on the rear are larger than the ones on the front. As I said before, the ones on the front are going to be a 5 millimeter Allen. The ones on the rear are going to be a 9 millimeter. So just put her in there like so and break them loose. Now, it's very important when you're doing this, guys, make sure to put your e-brake handle down. You don't want to do what I did on the other side and fight with trying to get the rotor off, only to realize that I was really fighting with my e-brake because the rear has the e-brake on it. Now, these can also be stuck like the fronts, so that's when you're going to grab your mallet, kind of give her a little tap, like so, and then wiggle her off like that. Now, this is where things get interesting. So because the rotor size of the big brake kit, the 6-piston front, 4-piston rear, are much larger than your ones that come standard on your M3 and M4. In order to fit the rotor in this dust shield, you have to completely trim off this outer edge here. And then you also have to do what we did to the front one, which is cut this section here and cut this section up here in order to be able to fit the caliper here as well. So I'm gonna go ahead now, clean it up, mark my areas that I need to cut this whole outer lip off and these sections here, and then we'll fill you guys in after that. Well, let me take that off. All right, guys, so when you're done cutting, this is essentially what it's gonna look like. It's not very pretty, but I promise it looks better than the other side. The other side we massacred, but we got it down packed for this side. That's why we're showing you guys. This is what it's gonna essentially look like when you're done cutting everything.
No, it didn't. The other side looks great. The other side looks perfect because this is YouTube and YouTubers don't make mistakes ever.
Fun fact. So now we're just gonna throw the rotor on. And also guys, just for your information, M cars and certain vehicles that have M performance parts, the rotors will be labeled left and right, because the way that the vanes travel on the rotor have to be able to pump out all the hot air, suck in the cold air, things of that nature. So you want to make sure that when you're putting them on, you're putting the left rotors on the left side and the right rotors on the right side. Or you're going to have a very bad day, so on and so forth. So I'm going to finish putting the rotor on, putting the caliper on, hooking up the brake line to the caliper, getting this side all tidied up, and then we're going to jump into the bleeding process. So let's get to it. All right, guys, so the install for the big brake kit has been installed. So now what you need to do is, at this point in the process, once everything has been double checked, everything's been re-tie-ined, and you make sure everything's been cleaned from all the brake fluid that dripped down, to make sure that you're not leaking any when you're about to do this process. Because now we're going to bleed the system. So thankfully I have a vacuum slash pressure bleeder. It's 2-in-1, works really well. So it's definitely going to speed up the process on my end. If you guys are just doing this old-fashioned style with somebody pumping the brake pedal and you cracking the line, that'll work too. Or if you have a regular pressure bleeder that you pump up, that'll work too. This method is just a lot faster. Now if we come over here, I'm finally going to sit down after standing up all day. But you're always going to want to start with the furthest brake caliper away from your reservoir, and that's going to be your passenger side rear. You're going to bleed the inner and the outer portion of the caliper on both sides until there's essentially no air left in the system here. And then you're going to move over to the driver's side rear. Then you're going to come back to the passenger side front, and then you're going to finish up with the driver's side front. Once you've done that, test your pedal feel, see how it feels. If it feels good, cool. If it doesn't, go back through, do it again, or you can do it again just for the sake of safety, because you got to take this serious. This is your life, literally, in your own hands. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do everything that I just told you guys, and we'll check back in with you after I finish.
All right, well, we finally finished. Honestly, Ben finally finished. I was just support. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you guys can see the difference is just honestly astronomical. And it was funny because Ben actually, he was testing the, I guess the resistance, would you say, on your brake pedal?
On the brake pedal feel, yeah.
And he almost started crying.
No, not crying.
No, not crying, but it was just really cool to see that it was like instant gratification for him, that he could instantly see the difference between the two. So if you guys are watching this video because you clicked on it in regards to a DIY, then hopefully you learned a lot from it. And if you guys clicked on the video because you wanted to stay up to date with us, then it's a win-win either way. And yeah. But take us home, Ben.
Yeah, just a couple of things in closing, guys. Just always make sure you go back over everything, you double check everything. As I was bleeding my system, the one that I started with, the passenger side rear, the brake line started to leak a little bit. So I went ahead and I tightened that up, and I went back through and I checked all the rest as well. I pumped the brake a couple of times just to make sure that there was no fluid squirting out of anything. Made sure all my bleeding screws were tight as well after I got done bleeding. And everything's good to go. The pedal feel feels great, like Jamal was saying. It's a lot better. Going from your regular rubber lines to, stainless steel braided lines is a big difference. There's no room for anything to expand. Even when the fluid gets hot, or when, the brake line itself gets hot, it's just all right there, full pressure all the time. So I can't wait to try this new setup out on the track. It's definitely gonna help build my confidence a lot more, knowing that I have a much better braking system now, paired with really good tires. And just want to apologize if I seemed a little off in this video. It's very late. Let's see. I pull up my phone. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but it's about almost 3 a.m. and me and Jamal have been going at this since about 6:30 p.m. So we're very tired.
So, yo, so whenever you go to a dealership and they say how many labor hours it takes, believe them.
Yeah, for real. Believe us.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. But yeah, all in all, guys, it wasn't that bad.
No.
Just be patient with it, depending on how you go about it. And again, safety first. Make sure you double check everything, because this is your life on the line. And I'm about to put my life on the line, and hopefully I did everything correct. If not, you won't see this video upload, and that'll be that. So.
Well, I want to say, though, first, comment down below if you like the color. Comment down below what color you would have chosen if you were to completely redo your brakes. I personally don't have a color preference yet, but yeah, let us know what you guys think, and like, comment, subscribe, and
peace out. We'll catch you in the next one. I'm going home. I'm
Get
going
outta
to sleep.